The Canadian government is still compensating the victims of the disturbing thalidomide safe and effective fallout, which leads some to wonder, will the COVID-19 vaccine injury support program be ongoing for decades to come? Thalidomide was a drug introduced to the Canadian market as both safe and effective on April 1st, 1961. It was used in the market of origin, Germany, and more than 40 other countries since 1958. It was available on global markets for a little over 2 years as safe for pregnant women and effective at quelling morning sickness in the first trimester of pregnancy. The Canadian government is said to have authorized the marketing of the drug based on the same information that the Americans did not find sufficient to prove safety. In fact, in 1962, FDA reviewer Frances Kelsey was awarded the President's Award for Distinguished Federal Civilian Service by President John F. Kennedy for her refusal to authorize thalidomide on the U.S. market. As a result of her unwavering commitment to safety, thalidomide was never distributed for use in the United States.
Frances Kelsey, a Canadian doctor who had become a drug official in the United States.
It was the early 60s and Dr. Frances Kelsey was under fire, branded a bureaucratic whiner by drug makers for blocking thalidomide from American drugstore shelves.
The problem is some drugs may not show a toxicity until they've been used for several years.
Her unflinching courage spared the United States from one of the worst drug disasters in medical history.
The bottom part of the arm was missing, and she had 4 fingers and no legs.
Thalidomide was given to pregnant women as a cure for morning sickness and insomnia. Thousands of babies died. Many more were born severely deformed.
Now, by December 2nd, 1961, the drug had already been pulled from the German and British markets after several doctors expressed concern that the drug was causing severe birth defects in babies born to mothers who had taken the anti-nausea sedative. These are known as teratogenic effects that cause abnormal fetal development. In the case of thalidomide, this resulted in visible malformation of things like limbs, included missing arms and ears, deafness, defects in the face and the palate, and malformations of the gastrointestinal system, deformities of the eyes and hearts. Because the drug also caused miscarriage, it's unknown how many deaths it caused, but it's said that less than 40% of the babies affected by this disturbing tragedy survived into adulthood. The government of Canada was well aware of these safety concerns about the possible teratogenic effects of thalidomide, but it wasn't until March 2nd, 1962, that the Canadian authorities decided to finally withdraw thalidomide from the market. As unbelievable as it seems, thalidomide was legally available in Canada for 3 months after it was withdrawn from Germany. Canada's Health Minister Monteith in 1963 acknowledged the duty of the government to support victims of thalidomide. While class actions and other litigation was pursued globally, here in Canada, victims were forced to settle out of court with gag orders, resulting in vast differences in compensation amounts. Since Canada brought thalidomide to market despite warnings and delayed its withdrawal, many argued that the authorities had a moral duty to adequately compensate victims. The Government of Canada then introduced the Extraordinary Assistance Plan, or EAP, in 1991. It gave a one-time payment ranging between $56,000 and $83,000 to 109 thalidomide survivors who fulfilled their eligibility criteria. Faced with debilitating disability and increased financial burden, the program pivoted after advocacy efforts by the group called Right the Wrong, where the Thalidomide Survivors Contribution Program, TSCP, was developed in 2015. It further compensated survivors through annual pension and other settlement money. And then in 2019, the Canadian Thalidomide Survivors Support Program, CTSSP, was developed, which is ongoing automatic compensation for those left with the debilitating fallout of this once touted as safe and effective drug. It provides annual payouts geared toward disability levels of up to $100,000 a year. Sadly, it appears that the government, and specifically Health Canada, did not learn anything from this horrific tragedy or the fallout of it that continues to plague nearly 100 Canadians 70 years later. They shamelessly promoted and continue to promote novel, still in clinical trial, modified RNA drugs referred to as vaccines as safe and effective, including for pregnant and breastfeeding women, based on misrepresented data and severely underrepresented clinical trials that were ongoing when the shots were authorized and then unblinded a mere 2 months into the experiment. According to the last update by the Government of Canada, COVID-19 vaccine adverse events have been reported by 58,712 people, up to and including January 5th, 2024, and that's the date that they just magically stopped reporting. The government decided that they will no longer be updating this online report, so how's that for transparency? Meanwhile, the pandemic-borne vaccine injury support program, known as VISP, coincided with the rollout of these injections, which were authorized through an interim order that waived liability for the rushed-to-market product. As of its last reporting date at the beginning of June, it received 2,628 of those nearly 59,000 adverse events claims, and only 183 of them were approved by the elusive Medical Review Board. That's if those suffering injuries can navigate the extensive paperwork, multi-level filtering, and bloated bureaucracy to get their injury recognized and diagnosed. So why am I sharing all this? Because I think there's very real potential that vaccine injuries could mirror the thalidomide crisis. Throughout my years of reporting on this subject, beginning with a gentleman named Kevin Street in June 2021, it's become increasingly clear that vaccine injuries are not only severely underreported, but misdiagnosed as other conditions, treated as psychological ailments, or attributed to this new phenomenon called long COVID. And the potential intergenerational fallout of these products casts a shadow of destruction and long-term harm for generations to come. So when the Liberals quietly extended the VISP program in Budget 2024, I wonder, is this a hint of what's to come? The federal budget now allocates $19 million to VISP in 2024-25 and an additional $17 million in 2025-26, of which nearly 60% goes to program administration rather than the victims of the safe and effective vaccine campaign. Will this evolve into a permanent fixture in the federal budget as the fallout of the destructive PSYOP continues to unravel? Only time will tell. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. We're calling on Federal Minister of Health Mark Holland to revoke market authorization for these injections at nomoreshots.ca. There you can sign our petition. You can also send that form email to Minister Holland, and you can continue to support our work if you find value in it. That's nomoreshots.ca.